give yourself permission to cheat a little bit. All these little tips we're talking about, you can elevate food easily and inexpensively. And then it's a little bit better for you than that cheeseburger or the nachos or whatever.
I'm Dalia Colon, and this is The Zest. Citrus, seafood, Spanish flavor, and Southern charm. The Zest celebrates cuisine and community in the Sunshine State. Today, we are having ourselves a potluck. My colleagues and I each brought our favorite kitchen hacks that you'll want to steal. And if you like what you hear, donate to The Zest so we can keep bringing you this great content. Find a link in the show notes or at thezestpodcast.com. And as a thank you, we'll send you a fun Zest sticker. Fall is busy for a lot of us. Whether you've got kids back in school, a big work project, or you're trying to get your garden planted, whatever your situation, the last thing you need is to stress about cooking. My colleagues and I recently met up remotely to discuss our favorite ways to save time, money, and sanity in the kitchen. We hope you'll find them useful too.
I'm Alex. I'm the brand manager for the Zest. The only time I cooked was when we were doing blue aprons because those are easy and they came with the recipe. My husband does all the cooking. Last week he made oxtails, which then turned into like oxtail pasta. Monday, I think it was, he threw some chicken on the smoker. Yeah, so I don't really have to do much. I'm the sous chef. I will say that. Yeah. That's my house in a nutshell.
Well, I'm shaking my head at you, Alex. I'm Andrew Lucas. I'm the editor and producer of The Zest, and I am the cook in my family. So I'm jealous, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And
thanks.
Hi, everybody. My name is Leslie Laney, and I do a lot of stuff at the station for our digital products, and I am very happy to be in this little chat today. But in my living situation, I do love to cook. I have to be in the mood for it, though. Like, I love watching the cooking shows and then trying to replicate that in the kitchen. And I think my family enjoys when I am in the mood to cook.
Ooh, I didn't know that about you. Okay. And I'm Dalia Colon. I'm the host and executive producer of The Zest. You hear my voice every week. And I do almost all of the cooking for my family. Every once in a while, my kids will want to experiment, but I'm definitely the person who cooks whether I'm in the mood or not. So very happy to get some ideas from all of you today. Okay, I want to start out with tools and appliances. I'm a minimalist, I guess, when it comes to that stuff. So I know that you all are using some things that I'm probably not. And I want to sort of be talked into it. Like, sell me on your favorite appliance, the one you use all the time.
The one that I think we probably use the most is an air fryer, and you can do anything in it. The first air fryer that we had came with the cookbook. So obviously, me, again, I'm not the cook. But I was very proud of myself because there was a recipe to make a chicken, like a whole chicken. I did it and it came out amazingly. It was just like a little Cornish hen, so nothing too crazy. But with the air fryer, you can, at least hours, you can reheat things, you can bake. If it's something fried or something crispy, you can just pop it in the air fryer and it keeps it crispy versus like microwaving it. Robert, my husband, he has done chicken wings in the air fryer. Oh my gosh, they come out so good. So
I'm a big fan too. So
okay, Andrew, I want to hear from you because Alex, I appreciate that, but Andrew and I are vegetarians, and whenever my friends talk about air fryers, they always name all the meats that they cook, and I'm like, but I'm not doing any of that. So then, Andrew, what are you doing with the air fryer?
Well, I've had several iterations of air fryers, and the first one we bought kind of as a novelty when everybody was talking about them. It was a small model. It had a little like drawer kind of bucket thing you pulled out of it, and it was kind of a novelty. We used it on occasion for mozzarella sticks or whatever, but it really wasn't until we upgraded and I got one that was more of a proper appliance, almost like a mini oven with a little heavy door that swings down, little metal trays that slide out. And that's when my game really started getting upped because I'll do like sesame tofu in there. Sometimes if I want to just like quickly brown or crisp up some vegetables or something like that, I'll put them in there. We've done grilled cheese sandwiches in there. I've found that I get really nice crispy things, very low oil and fat. So it's a sort of a, I wouldn't call it healthy, but it's healthier certainly than like deep frying or pan frying. I don't think it has to break the bank, but I do think it's worth getting a little heavier duty version. I think the little novelty ones, it's going to disappoint you more than help. And I will say this, as we are a Florida podcast, it sure beats having to crank your oven up to 450 on a hot summer day.
That's very good. Okay, Leslie, when you're in the mood to cook, what is the appliance that you're reaching for the most?
I definitely agree with Andrew and Alex. The air fryer is a winner, especially in the summer. But I also like to pair my air fryer with a rice cooker because I can cook rice and then I can throw a vegetable in there at the top and let that steam. So I literally can have the full dinner cooking and not have to be touching it, dealing with it. I can be doing something else for 20, 30 minutes and I go back and it's all done. And I have a cleaning hack for the air fryer, especially for you, Alex, if you're making bacon in there. Did you know if you put bread at the bottom of it, it will absorb all the grease and it crisps up the bread, you toss it, and it's a nice clean air fryer when you're done.
I like the rice cooker veggie hack because a family friend asked me if I wanted a rice cooker and I said, no, I'm not really into gadgets. And he sent me one anyway. And I haven't been using it. But if I could be making rice and veggies at the same time without turning on the stove, I'm open to that. And it's already in my house.
Yeah.
So I was a big fan of Alton Brown growing up, if you guys remember Alton Brown. And he had a mantra he always would say on his show that he did not like unitaskers. He wanted everything in his kitchen to serve multiple purposes. And that really stuck with me. So the item on my list next, I'm a huge fan of, which is the Instapot. And I know I'm picking all of these like sort of trendy kitchen gadgets, but man, that Instapot I use way more than I thought I would. Just the other day, I made boiled peanuts. That's like my favorite thing. I've started almost entirely now doing dried beans instead of canned beans to make red beans and rice or hummus.
I have questions already. Yeah. I'm sorry.
No, go for it.
I'm in my canned bean era because I got kids and all this other stuff. Is the difference that much? We went to a friend's house for lunch, and when we got there, she was rinsing dried beans, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be 8 p.m. before we eat. But then she put them in the Instant Pot, and they were ready in like 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the recipe. For example, like even with the Instant Pot, when I do boiled peanuts, I mean, they're raw peanuts. They still go for 2.5 hours, 3 hours in the Instant Pot. But that's as opposed to like boiling them for 24 hours on the stove, which sounds dangerous to me anyway. In terms of beans, I'm like you, like, believe me, I have no shame. I use canned stuff all the time too. But I noticed right away the flavor difference in my red beans and rice, for example. Now that's a recipe I've made a million times. I could tell the difference, but no disrespect to your friend, I wouldn't start the beans when my friends were arriving. I would prep them ahead of time.
I'm hungry now.
Yeah, I'd prep them ahead of time and then have it waiting for when I actually want to add them into my pot to make my red beans. Or Leslie, I've used it as a rice cooker. It's a pretty great rice cooker as well.
Leslie, what else are you using? I literally, like, all of mine are so low tech. I don't even want to say what they are.
Yeah, as far as equipment goes, I have one of those little Cuisinart choppers. It's a small little electric, like mincer, or you can chop or do different types of cuts. And that is really cool. Like if you want to buy some fresh salsa in Whole Foods or something like that, but you want to add extra things to it, I'll take extra peppers or cilantro and pre-chop that and then throw the salsa into the Cuisinart and kind of use that to mix it all up. And it's like fresh, amazing salsa, like that tastes like you got it at a restaurant, but you just literally just chopped it up in the Cuisinart.
That's really good. The appliances I probably use the most are the toaster oven for things like chickpeas, my canned chickpeas, but I elevate them with garlic, paprika, olive oil, salt, and then I'll cook them on maybe 400 or 425 for like 15 minutes. And those are a great plant-based protein, but you can also just eat them as a snack. You can throw them on a salad. My son loves pizza, so I buy the little mini pizza crusts, and he can make one pizza for himself in the toaster oven. My daughter loves kale chips. She doesn't like a lot of veggies, but she likes kale chips. So I'll marinate the kale, massage it with olive oil and salt, and then bake it slow and low, maybe like 250 or 300 for like 15 minutes. So probably the toaster oven and citrus squeezer, just like a basic citrus squeezer, because I think a little sprinkle of citrus makes everything better. And if you want your food to taste like restaurant food, one of the things they do is finish everything with acid.
I think for me, it would be a slow cooker. and a pressure cooker. With the slow cooker, I mean, you kind of just set it and forget it. You know, Delia, you do your chilies and all that stuff. You can make it that night and just, I don't know if it's necessarily cook overnight, but, 4 hours, it's done. As far as the pressure cooker, like Robert did oxtails in the pressure cooker, and I think it took an hour.
Okay. Because especially during school, I will start like some veggie chili at 5 or 6 a.m. for us to eat for dinner that night. And it's the best feeling to walk into your house and you smell food cooking and it's like another person did it. It's like a high five to your future self. But one tip that my friend Kiva taught me, the Fun Foodie Mama, is usually they have 3 settings, like high, low, and warm, like keep something warm. But if you're going to have it cooking, for 12 hours or something, you can just cook it on warm so that it doesn't overcook. So I've done that. And back when I ate meat, I would do that with chicken too, because you don't want it to be ready too soon while you're at your kid's soccer practice or you're stuck in traffic or something.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is actually a book I was going to recommend. You guys reminded me of it, which I've been reading, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat by Simon Nosrat. And it's just a really great read, but it is as close as I've found to cooking school in a book. I mean, the title sort of says it all, but I love this. It speaks to sort of the way I learn things. Is they're explaining not just the how of things, but the why. Just like you said, Delia, why add acid? Or why add salt? Or why cook something like this? And it's fascinating. It's got charming little illustrations in it. Every page I'm learning a new technique about something. So huge fan of that book.
And that's great for people who are not as comfortable. I know you're very comfortable in the kitchen, but I know some people listening probably only follow the recipe and, oh my gosh, it says I need apple cider vinegar and all I have are these 10 other vinegars. I got to run out to Publix and get apple cider. But if you understand you just need an acid, then you could use your balsamic vinegar. You could use limes or something like that. And so I think that could be helpful. And since you mentioned a book, it didn't even occur to me, but I'm a big fan of the public library. Oh, yeah. I check out cookbooks from the library all the time, just kind of to look through them while we're watching TV at night and get ideas. So that's another free resource. So shout out to them.
Yeah, I just checked out a cookbook from the library by some author named Delia Cologne.
No, never heard of her. Thank you so much.
Is she like a new cookbook author? Like,
it's available in local retailers near you, I think.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, really? Okay.
You guys are so sweet. Some of your favorite actual food hacks. We've talked about appliances and tools. Do you guys remember the show on the Food Network called Semi-Homemade with Sandra Lee? So she'd start with we're going to start with a box of cake mix and we're going to add some chocolate pudding and some whipped cream. You know what I mean? I love those kind of hacks because you can add a little something fresh to something that was pre-made and it just changes the whole thing. Absolutely. Or you can I love taking the frozen vegetable egg rolls and it comes with the sauce packet, but I'll make my own sauce to go with it. And then it tastes more like a restaurant. Does anyone have any other time and money saving food hacks in the kitchen?
Prepping ahead of time, I think things like freezing minced garlic, like fresh minced garlic in the ice cube trays and having those portioned out, or the olive oil with the herbs and freezing those things so that you can easily just pop a few of those out and throw them into whatever you're about to make. That's a huge time saving hack for me.
That's really good. I have some of those too. And I think it's a mental shift because we feel like we're cheating if we don't do it all ourselves. Of course, you can buy the minced garlic, you can buy it already frozen, or you can make your own in the ice trays. But we have to give ourselves permission to take some of those shortcuts because for a lot of people, it's either I make the whole meal from scratch or I order DoorDash. So This is very low hanging fruit, but the pre-chopped garlic, I have like every type of garlic that you can have. I've got the full bulbs that I might put in the toaster oven, roast them and make hummus. I've got the pre-skinned whole garlic cloves, and then I've got just I got to get dinner on the table in 5 minutes. Let me scoop out some minced garlic. And I feel like they all have their place in the kitchen, just like you might have different types of salt. I've got all the different varieties of garlic. A couple of you mentioned the bagged veggies.
Yeah.
What are you doing with those, and how can we make them taste even better?
There's one that we had. It was Brussels sprouts, and they already came seasoned with like salt and pepper and stuff. So you really didn't have to do anything to that. But usually with the other steamable bags, you just gotta like zhuzh them up a little bit once you're done with them. Whatever seasonings that I can grab, I would say salt and pepper, a little bit of butter. I might grab some garlic powder, onion powder, stuff like that. If we're doing broccoli, we have this like cheesy powdered cheese, whatever. It's from Trader Joe's, and it's a cheesy seasoning blend. So usually if I'm doing broccoli, I'll put this on there just for that. But yeah, just zhuzh it up however you want.
I almost always have in my freezer this huge, like 4-pound bag, and it's just chopped peppers and onions. I think it was like $8 at one of these big box retail stores. And as a busy parent on a weeknight, you're trying to get anything on the table. Those peppers and onions we use constantly. You put them in tacos, you put them in scrambled eggs, you can put them in red beans and rice. Dicing up peppers and onions, it's not a huge thing, but if you're looking to shave off 5, 10, 15 minutes, you're trying to get food on the table, that's a way that you can still make a quote unquote home cooked meal and everything's still fresh ingredients. But to go back to something I think probably Dalia said, a lot of us are busy. We got multiple jobs and kids and responsibilities. And I think it's kind of a theme here about cheating a little bit. I'm always a fan of getting people in the kitchen by whatever means. And if that's my kids making a pot of mac and cheese, great. At least they're cooking something.
For sure. Yeah. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
I love that.
Leslie, what about you? What are some of your cheats?
I love artichoke hearts, and cooking a whole artichoke fresh, it takes a lot of time. And so I found that at Whole Foods, they have frozen artichoke hearts. And to me, that was a game changer because that's one of the vegetables that I will steam in the rice cooker and throw into like a stir fry almost with the rice and whatever type of protein or other vegetables that I have. I'll also use them in like making a pasta. So any type of fresh pre-cut vegetables that might steam really better than a frozen vegetable would, I will throw those all together with some kale. I'll take frozen broccoli and frozen kale and throw it into ramen to like make it fancy ramen. I call it fancy ramen, and cut some green onions. So little things like that to help elevate something that just might be, normal or boring, but adding a little bit of frozen vegetables will spice it up a bit.
Oh, that's good. Something else that could spice it up are like literal spices and herbs. We've had a lot of chefs on here over the years, and they always talk about having fresh herbs in addition to the citrus. So even if you just have like a pot of basil on the balcony of your apartment or like a pot of parsley on your kitchen counter, that can make a big difference, not only in the flavor. And I'm also a big fan of like, yes, and like more is more. So I might do dried parsley and then finish it with some fresh parsley, or, coriander and then finish it with some cilantro. So not only does it add like depth of flavor, but it also adds a pop of color. And something else that people say a lot is that we eat with our eyes first. Like, it's one thing if I'm just making a meal for me, but if I have to like sell my husband on it or my kids, like it's really gotta look good. And so the herbs can help with that. I also keep some, I guess I call them flavor bombs, just like in the pantry and the fridge that I know will add flavor. So we talked about rice and frozen veggies. I usually would roast the veggies, but if I'm cooking anything on the stove and it asks for water, I'm always going to put vegetable broth instead of the water. With rice, I'll even do like a combo of vegetable broth and coconut milk just to get that flavor going on every level. Like, don't wait until the end and then it's bland and you're like, where did I go wrong? Like, no, start from square one. And I'm also a big fan of those. I shop at Aldi a lot, and they have like the bags of rice and quinoa mixed together. I keep, oh, Alex is like, ooh, and you can get them other places too, but I keep those on hand because you can just throw it in the microwave and you've got your protein and like a bed that you can, throw some chickpeas or some veggies on too. So those are very handy. And a lot of those little pouches are really not that bad. I've gotten some good tikka masala and things like that at Target. And on a busy night, you throw that in the microwave with some rice and maybe some like frozen naan. And then you sprinkle some cilantro on top and you're the hero of your family.
That's a great idea. I had an herb tip on my list as well, which is now I think some of the grocery stores have actually caught on to this trick, but I always look in the so-called international section of the grocery store and you can pick up little pouches of herbs and spices. Usually I find them in the Mexican section. A lot of them come from a company called Badia, which is actually based out of Doral, Florida. So that's kind of cool too. But if you buy your bay leaves or your dried parsley or whatever, it's the only place I've ever been able to find Mexican oregano too, is in that section. But they're usually just a fraction of the price of the jars and the bottles that you buy in the spice section. So now, like I said, I think stores are kind of starting to catch on to that trick. So I've been seeing them at some retailers less and less. But yeah, always check the international aisle. You'll get the exact same product for just pennies.
That's such a good point. And then if you have time to go exploring in your Indian or your Latin grocery stores, sometimes the produce is less expensive too.
Oh, that's good.
And it's fun. Like,
for sure,
you get in a rut, but to take a little field trip to the Latin market down the street from my house, like, it kind of wakes up my senses and gives me new ideas. And my kids love it. So that's an easy one. I think you have the nights when you know exactly what you're going to make. And I'm not somebody who plans out the whole week. I maybe know 1 or 2 days, but something I try to do is like know where my protein is coming from. If it's going to be chickpeas, if it's going to be black beans, and then I have those pantry staples so I can kind of build the rest of the meal from that. Last year we did that series Couples in the Kitchen, and Bryce and Ryan, they have their what they call protein library, which is their freezer, but they've got their chicken in there and their salmon. And so every night they can choose, we're going to make a Thai dish, but what protein do we want to use as sort of the star? And so I think that's really cool to have a protein library. And I've been trying to build that up, even with things like, lentil meatballs that I make, just making double and freezing it. Because, we're recording this in late July. Back to school is gearing up. And so I'm trying to give gifts to my future self.
That's great. I love that. Well, I've got one last one on my list, and that is child labor. Because my youngest in particular now has really discovered a love of cooking, which delights me to no end. My oldest, not so much, although starting to come around. But just getting them in the kitchen, getting them around the stove, gets them asking questions while I'm cooking. That's kind of where it started. Hey, Dad, what's that? Or why did you do that? So just getting them curious, but it pays dividends because they've been starting to pick up knife skills. They've been starting to taste the difference between different herbs and just kind of becoming familiar with the language of the kitchen, whether they know it or not. And aside from just literally the labor, because on a busy Wednesday night, sometimes I need the help. Well, just yesterday out of nowhere, we're home from school for the summer. My 13-year-old walks up to me as I'm working and says, "Hey, Dad, I feel like stew. Do you want Irish stew for lunch?"
What?
And I was like, "Yes, I do." And she just went and made a big old pot of Irish stew, came in, asked me for help a couple of times. But other than that, did the whole thing herself. And I'm like, "All so right, cool. I could get used to this."
Ooh, that's so good. I love that because as a parent, you have to relinquish some of the control and let them do it their way, whether it's your kids or whether like Robert does most of the cooking. But when you're making the broccoli and you want to put the cheese powder on top, he has to let you do it your way, which is cool. My kids don't always want to help. Sometimes I'll let them do drive-by help. Like, hey, I'm getting ready to crack an egg. You want to do it? Because I know my son loves to crack the egg. Or my daughter loves to cut things. Friend of the pod, Wendy Wesley, nutritionist and dietitian in St. Pete. She always talks about the importance of knife skills. If you've got really little kids, they can use these nylon knives, which are great because they can do real kitchen tasks with the knife. They can cut the tomatoes for the sauce. They're not just stirring things. And you can get those for like $10. But then older kids, like my daughter's 12, so she uses the real chef's knife. She knows how to use it safely. And she's like in control. You know, they look on Instagram and they find things they want to make. Yesterday, she and her friends wanted to make ground beef tacos. So I got them everything they needed. I went and took a shower. I came back and everything was done. They did it their way. And then they're proud of it too. And I did make them clean up. I bribed them with dessert. I was like, you can have dessert when the kitchen is clean. And it's funny because my daughter is 12. She was like ordering her friends around to make sure they got the dessert, and they did.
Love that.
Well, guys, this was fun. And now I'm actually really hungry.
Yeah, I know, right?
We'll see what I can make in my rice cooker. Alex just got up and got herself some food. It's a food podcast, so you can do that. Oh my gosh, this has been fantastic. I have so many good ideas from you all that I need to try. So thank you for coming to the potluck.
Yes, absolutely. It was great to be here.
Thanks, Leslie, for joining us, our first installation of our potluck.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. That was great.
Thanks for joining us for this Zest potluck. I'm curious to experiment with my rice cooker because apparently I have not been using it to its full potential. And I still don't have an Instant Pot, but if you do, then you've got to try Andy's Cajun Boiled Peanuts. That's from my colleague, Andrew Lucas. Find the recipe on our website, thezestpodcast.com. And for even more kitchen hacks, follow us on Facebook and Instagram at The Zest Podcast. This season, we're debuting a social media series called Zest Snacks, sponsored by Adelaide Interiors. Now, these are short, shareable tips that you can use in the kitchen today. And join us next week for a conversation about food deserts and childhood nutrition with Chef Marcus Clark of Yes Chef Village. Ooh, he's got a story to tell. You don't want to miss it. I'm Dalia Colon. I produce The Zest with Andrew Lucas and Alexandria Ebron. You also heard today from Leslie Laney, Director of Digital Services and Marketing for WUSF, who's also our supervisor. The Zest is a production of WUSF, copyright 2024, part of the NPR network.